Yesterday, Donald Trump had a very public and, to be honest, quite racist meltdown on Twitter. But it wasn't just one meltdown. He actually suffered multiple different meltdowns all throughout the day. So let's start with the very first one. This is one of the first meltdown tweets that Donald Trump sent. This is also the one that's fairly racist when you read between the lines. Here it is. The Democrats never even mentioned the words law and order at their national convention. That's where they're coming from. If I don't win, America's suburbs will be overrun with low-income projects, anarchist agitators, looters, and of course, friendly protesters. So here's the thing. We know what he means when he says low-income housing projects. We know that he is referring to poor black people. And he's trying to scare these, I guess, racist suburbanites into thinking that if you vote for Joe Biden, you're going to have poor black people move into your neighborhood. That's just what's going to happen. Even though that hasn't happened anytime we've had a Democratic president in the past, it's definitely totally going to happen now. But here's the thing that I don't think Trump understands. Is there a lot of inherent racism in the United States? Absolutely. Does the thought of being near a poor black person terrify the average American citizen? No, it does not. And it's not going to terrify enough of them to let you retain control of the White House. As for all the other stuff, simply not going to happen. It's happening now in Trump's America. We're literally seeing it on our streets, a few streets to be honest. This is not widespread, by the way. We're literally talking about a couple of cities where things have gotten out of control. In Trump's America. You're not seeing rioters. You're not even seeing protesters. In the vast, 99.9% of American cities aren't seeing anything at all. But he wants you to think that what's happening in Portland or what had happened in Kenosha is somehow coming to the streets of Birmingham, Alabama or Oxford, Mississippi. Y'all best beware. He's playing on the fears and ignorance of the voters down here in the South. That's what he's doing. See it happen all the time. And the worst part is, I see a lot of the idiots down here that actually do believe it. Seriously, if you haven't taken a trip through the American South since Trump became president, I seriously suggest you do that. I know there's a lot of people who do what we do here, political analysis, things like that. If y'all haven't actually been to this area of the country since Trump became president, you're kind of not getting the full picture of how bad it really is. This is a different world, a world you need to experience to fully understand how people like Trump come to power. Because it's sickening. I get to watch it in real time, and it's terrifying. So anyway, okay, there's your first meltdown of the day. Here is the second one, and this is actually a two-part tweet because he couldn't get it all out in one. And for a little bit of context, Trump went to Michigan yesterday, did another one of his rallies where most people were not wearing masks, so most likely going to be another, quote, super spreader event. But here are the two tweets. On November 3rd, Michigan will decide whether we will quickly return to record prosperity or whether we allow sleepy Joe Biden to impose a $4 trillion tax hike, ban American energy, confiscate your guns, shut down the economy, shut down auto production, delay the vaccine, destroy the suburbs, erase your borders, and indoctrinate your children with poisonous anti-American lies. Do you remember the day before yesterday when Donald Trump came out and said the reason he lied to us about coronavirus is because he didn't want to cause a panic? Do those words seem like the words of a man who doesn't want to cause a panic? Or do they seem like the words of a person who needs to be constantly monitored 24 hours a day by mental health professionals? Honestly, if you saw a guy on the corner of the street saying these exact same things, reading this tweet verbatim, you would probably call somebody because you would not feel safe. You would not feel secure. This person is clearly deranged and they need help. But it's not a person on a street corner. It is a person that needs help, but it's a person sitting in the White House. It's the person with the damn nuclear codes. And we're supposed to sit here and act like this is okay? I forget for a second that everything this man just mentioned is an absolute lie. as I previously said, Democrats have actually controlled the government before, and they didn't do a single one of these things he said. There was no $1 trillion tax hike. They didn't come door to door and confiscate your guns. They didn't impose anti-American indoctrination on your children. This is psychotic behavior, psychotic talking points coming from a man who isn't well. Donald Trump has lost his mind. And I know people say, well, he never had. Shut up with that crap. That's not helpful and it's annoying. But he has gone crazy. This kind of proves it. I'm not saying this to mock him. And I'm not saying this because I'm, inconsiderate of people with mental health issues. This man has a mental health issue. This man is a threat to the country, and we have seen that with his orders, with having Homeland Security go around and disappear people off American streets. He is a threat, and he needs to be contained by the professionals. I can promise you, if there was somebody on a street corner saying the exact same things that Trump said in these tweets, the police would have handled it probably with bullets rather than taking this person into custody because they would be afraid of somebody saying such crazy things. And if you don't believe me, we actually saw it happen earlier this week. They weren't saying these particular things, but it was a person having a mental health issue. Police decided to shoot him rather than actually try to deal with it. This man cannot be allowed to remain president of the United States. I know we're in a campaign season, and I know that in campaigns, people say horrible things. They say things that are clearly not true. They say things that are borderline slander and libel. So that actually raises a bigger question. Why can we not, why can the candidates not sue for slander and libel in this specific situation? What Trump just said here about what Joe Biden would do, every bit of it is a lie. And each one of those lies could actually cost Joe Biden the presidency. And one of the things you have to prove with slander or libel is that it has impacted your ability to perform your job. It has impacted your future earning potential, which if you don't become president, that's going to impact that. So how is this not grounds for him to file a libel lawsuit against the president? Furthermore, and this is actually what got me on this road, is I keep thinking last night I saw an ad for Tommy Tuberville, who's running for the Senate seat in Alabama against Doug Jones. Tuberville specifically said in that ad that Doug Jones will raise your taxes, then use that money to pay for abortions. That is word for word what he said. Doug Jones will raise your taxes and use that money to pay for abortions. That's not true. It's not even allowed. It's slander. So when a Tommy Tuberville says these horrible things about his opponent, why can he not sue? When Donald Trump has these horrible, complete mental breakdowns on Twitter telling lies to the American public to slander his opponent, why can he not sue him? I think that's something we need to look into, because this has to stop. Politics is getting uglier than ever. And it's not all because of Trump, but he did certainly act as the catalyst to make it so much worse than it was before. Part of it is because he's simply an asshole. The other part of it is because something's not right in his brain.